Blanche and the Younger Man is the ninth episode of the first season of The Golden Girls. This is directed by Jim Drake, and as always, there will be spoilers as I go through the episode and talk about various things that I enjoyed. And we have two new characters in this one. One is a character called Dirk, played by Charles Hill, and the other is Rose's mother, Alma Lindstrom, played by Jeanette Nolan. And it starts off with Blanche accepting a date with Dirk, and the episode in part deals with her dating a younger man and how that makes her feel, and I will talk more about that as we go through the episode. And the episode also focuses on Rose's mother and how Rose treats her mother. It's basically looking at how younger people treat older people, whether they're dating an older person or whether that is their own parents. And I think that there are going to be aspects of this that people can relate to, but I think there are some good lessons in this as well for how we treat our own parents as they get older. And this is largely because Rose is mothering her mother. And throughout the episode, we see her mother just trying to live her life. And there's a great quote, this beautiful quote, that I will share a little later on when we get there. But for the most part, Alma is out doing her own thing, partly spending time with Sophia, and Rose is panicking. And then we find out, and I didn't expect this to happen, but we find out that Alma was actually picked up by the police. And that was pretty unexpected. And we learned that this is quite simply because she'd asked for directions. And it seems a little bit extreme that they would pick her up and phone Rose and ask Rose to come and collect her mother, treating her like an invalid. But at the same time, I don't think it's unrealistic either. I feel like some people would treat older individuals as being helpless just because they ask for directions, which is nonsense, because loads of us ask for directions. But at the same time, if she'd asked for directions, the police genuinely thought she was confused or, needing help, but didn't help her, then that would also be a bad thing. So it's kind of being stuck between a rock and a hard place. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, just to really lay on the various idioms there. And Dorothy once again proves to be the voice of reason as she talks with Rose and gives this really great example of how when they were teenagers, they wanted to be treated as adults. And her mother is going through something similar. She just wants to be treated as an adult by her daughter and not as somebody who's old and incapable. And we get this beautiful quote. They have a heart-to-heart, Rose and Alma, and Rose explains that she's treating her mother like this because she's worried about her, which I think is perfectly reasonable. And Alma says, and I quote, "Stopping me from living isn't going to stop me from dying." And I think that that's really powerful. Yes, on the one hand, you need to be safe and you need to be careful. And as you get older, you do in some cases become more vulnerable. But there's a difference between preventing somebody from doing dangerous things if they're incapable and stopping somebody from living entirely. And this is what Rose was doing without realizing it. And I think that's a really moving quote and something that's relevant to everybody, not just as you get older, but stopping somebody from living isn't going to completely eradicate the fact that they're going to die. That being said, you don't need to take risks just because, you're going to die anyway, which is some people's mindsets. There is a balance to be had, but I really loved that quote, and it was a really moving moment that was really well done. We also have, pretty much directly after that, an equally moving moment between Sophia and Dorothy, where Sophia thanks Dorothy for treating her like a person and not just as an old lady, to use her phrase. And I found that to be a really sweet moment. And again, something that shows that there are the right ways and the wrong ways to treat your parents. And yes, again, as I said, there does come a time when, as people get older, they become less capable and less able of doing certain things, and they do need help, and that's completely acceptable and expected. But you can't just assume that because somebody's older, they're not able to do the things they once could. After that, we have a conversation around a table that was a little bit slow. It wasn't that interesting, but certainly not bad. And then Blanche comes in and has to admit that her date with Dirk just didn't work. And he was, and I quote, "He was looking for a mother, not a lover," which I thought was pretty amusing, but also kind of telling about how some people might want to date an older individual because they're looking for that mother or father figure. And that can work because sometimes somebody is looking to date somebody to mother them and protect them. But certainly that's not what Blanche was looking for. And Blanche had to realize that actually she's not as young as she once was, and she might not be able to connect as much with somebody younger, and that it's okay to date people her own age. And I just thought it was a nice way to end both of those parts of the episodes about getting older and how your children might treat you and how you might treat your parents, and also how younger dates might treat you if you're older. So definitely covers a lot of ground. We have some really great moments, really, really moving, quite funny as well. I didn't write down anything specific, but I have just remembered Dorothy's line about having a hump. Absolutely loved it. Dorothy, as always, is really the source of comedy. They're all very funny and very brilliantly performed characters, but I do think Dorothy is the one who makes me laugh the most. She's just fantastic. Her dry wit, I just absolutely love. That's definitely apparent in this episode, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Blanche and the Younger Man is really great. My only complaint, and it's not really a complaint, but I wish the title referred more to the story with Rosa's mother, as I feel like that part was more moving and more meaningful, and for me at least, what the episode was focusing on most and what I enjoyed the most. But that being said, I liked Blanche's story as well. I liked it all. Blanche and the Younger Man is a really good episode.